Hello, I'm Amy Jo DeCoyer on behalf of the Finger Lakes Independence Center in Ithaca, New York. We are glad that you've joined us for this presentation on emergency readiness. Many folks feel anxious about dealing with possible emergencies that they may encounter. If that describes you, you are in the right place. Our purpose in giving you this information is to help you be prepared. Following the suggestions in this presentation can make you more confident in your own plan for an emergency and may mean that you are able to be a help to other people. If you want help putting together a plan, FLIC staff are happy to help. Call us at 607-272-2433. Let's get started. The overview of what we're going to be sharing today is discussing emergency situations that can occur and how to be prepared for them. Emergencies such as having a blizzard, flooding, and all the things related to flooding, loss of electricity, man-made disasters like a fire or a chemical spill, and lockdown like a dangerous person in the area or perhaps a quarantine. Recommended materials to have in your home, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about setting up support systems to have right now so that you'll be prepared for an emergency, and other considerations and recommended resources. We'll cover a lot of that information today. Key steps to our readiness is, first of all, to keep informed, be aware of the news, be aware of any emergencies that are happening in your area, have a plan ahead of time. We'll talk about assembling a kit, things to have on hand, things you may want to take with you. And two other things, creating a personal support network and completing a personal assessment, and we'll talk about both of those things. First of all, a personal support network is just made up of people who will check on you during an emergency to be sure you're well and give you assistance if you need it. A personal assessment is a tool to help people decide what they can do for themselves and what they may or may not need help with before, during, or even after an emergency. 72 hours, that is the magic number that the government has given us as far as being prepared for emergency responders to reach you. Now, you may have put your name on a list to say, I need extra help in an emergency, but you can't expect that they're going to show up for you right away. It may be that there's a terrible storm and the roads are not clear because of snow, or maybe trees are down and they have to cut the trees and clear a path to get to your house. So even if you signed up for needing help, it may be up to 72 hours before somebody can come get to you. So you need to be prepared for that. 72 hours, and now because of having the experience with COVID, sometimes there's a stay-at-home order where it may be longer than 72 hours that you have to stay home. So we want to help you be able to plan enough to have enough food, water, medicine, toiletries, and any other supplies that you may need. And every person is unique. Everyone has special needs, special things that they want to have on hand. And so you'll need to adapt this to whatever your needs are. The most likely emergencies in New York State. Now, I've lived in New York State most of my life, and the last 40 years or so have been in the Ithaca, Spencer, Manhattan area. And so what I've seen happen most likely are heavy snow, flooding, loss of electricity. That's a biggie. So that's the main focus I want to start out with, is the loss of electricity. I recently got an email from NYSEG, New York State Electric and Gas, and the title was, We're Preparing for a Winter Storm. And in it said, if someone in your household uses electrically powered life-sustaining equipment, enroll in our program at 800-572-1111 to be updated on power restoration efforts if the duration of an outage extends beyond 24 hours. Again, if you have a need for equipment that's life-sustaining and you've got to have power, if you're on their list, they will do everything in their power to get power back to you as soon as possible. But you need to sign up for it at that number. Again, the number is 800-572-1111. Now, if you know you may be about to lose your electricity, I know sometimes when we have storms in our area, and there's a thunderstorm. Many times in a thunderstorm, lightning may hit a tree and it may take out an electric line. So what quick preparations could you make just to be extra prepared? Recharge all your rechargeable devices like phones, power banks, batteries. Fill up some water containers. You want to have water for drinking. We'll talk about what you need for drinking. You may want to have some extra water just to maybe to flush the toilet, because when you don't have electricity, you can't flush the toilet more than once. If it's not really cold weather where you may, the water may freeze in your bathtub, you can even fill up your bathtub and just scoop water out of that to be able to flush your toilet. Crank up the heat if it's cold weather, or crank up the AC, depending on the weather. Know where all your emergency supplies are. It's a sad thing that people that they say, I am all ready, I've got all my stuff ready, and an emergency happens and they say, I forgot where I put it. So make sure you know where it is. And if you know you might lose electricity, it might be a good idea to have your phone that has a flashlight built in, or have a flashlight in your pocket ready to go just in case you can get to your supplies. So what if you do lose power, which means you lose your electricity, a lot of things don't work then? Who do you call? You need to know who to call when the power's out, and have that ahead of time, have those things planned. I have on my phone the number for NYSEG, so I can let them know if I'm without power. It's already on my phone. All I have to do is look it up and push the button. Do not call 911 if all that has happened is that you've lost your electricity. Only call 911 unless you or someone in your home is hurt or in danger. Other than that, don't call 911. Call your non-emergency number like NYSEG, power company, and above all things else, you've got this, stay calm. Immediately when the power is out, it's a good idea to unplug your appliances. That's electronics, TVs, computers, because when the power comes back on, sometimes it comes back with such a force that it may knock out, it may damage some of these devices. You'll see at the bottom here, I've got, I'm showing a power strip. It has a surge protector built in, so that if a lot of electricity hits the power, hits your electrical line right there, it will take it out. It will hurt the screen protector, but it won't hurt whatever's plugged into it, like your TV or your computer. If you have a surge protector, you may not need to unplug things, but that's up to you. Sign up for local alerts and warnings. You can do that on your phone, you can do that on your computer, but again, if you don't have electricity, your computer may not be working. So we'll give you more specifics on those later. What kind of food can you prepare without electricity? Some folks forget that when they don't have electricity, their electric stove may not work, their toaster won't work, their oven won't work, their toaster oven won't work, their microwave won't work. You need to think about those things. What kind of foods do you have in your home that you can fix without that kind of electric assistance? So if you have an idea that you may be without power for more than a couple hours, it may be an extended time, then you want to eat your perishable foods first. Those are foods that will spoil if they're not refrigerated or frozen. So the first thing you would do is use the things out of your refrigerator first, and then go to your freezer. And as much as possible, try not to open the doors unless you have to. So think about, what do I need? And then open the door and say, okay, I need all these things, and take out everything all at once. If you're going to make a sandwich, think, I need condiments, I need this, I need that. Have a list of everything you want and try to grab it out all at one time, and then shut the door again. Because the more you open and shut the door, the less it's going to be able to hold that coldness for your food. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says that a full freezer will stay safely cold for 48 hours. If it's only half full, it will only stay cold for 24 hours. So if you have a freezer that's only half full, what you could do is take soda bottles, fill them up with water, and put them in the freezer. That does two things. It helps keep more things cold, and as things melt, you would have water that you can drink. So use soda bottles, not milk bottles. Now, I'll tell you that again later, because milk bottles have bacteria in them from the milk. You don't want to try to keep drinkable water in a milk bottle. However, I talked about earlier about saving water, maybe to flush the toilet. You could keep that kind of water. If you want to use it for washing your hands or flushing the toilet, milk bottles are fine for that. Foods that don't need cooking. Think about these things. You've got granola, power bars, all kinds of crackers, peanut butter, jelly, jam, nuts, trail mix, dried fruit like raisins, canned fruit. All those things don't need cooking. And we'll have a whole listing of things later on, a larger listing of things. Foods that don't need cooking. Again, meat jerky, fruit and pudding cups, canned meats like tuna, chicken, spam, etc. Sports drinks, cereal. Some cereals you can eat even without milk. Different kinds of milk. There's powdered milk. You can now get milk in a box that's all ready to go. It doesn't need to be refrigerated. Or canned milk. Ramen noodles. Some people make salads and they throw in ramen noodles. They just eat them without cooking them. Some people munch on ramen noodles. Now, some of these foods are not the healthiest thing to have for a long period of time, but for a short period of time, it's just nice to have these things around. And also oatmeal. That's something you could add water to oatmeal and not even have to cook it, and it will get soft after a while, and you can eat that as well. Gas stove burners will not light without electricity. The oven also relies on an igniter and won't turn on. However, your gas stove can work during a power outage if you're careful. What you need to do is put a match, or in this picture right here, you've got a lighter. Put it to the burner and just have it on very low, and it will ignite the flame. Just be very careful when you do this. Have it on low and be careful about that. Another thing to add here is do not use your oven to heat your house. Don't ever do that. It's not a safe thing. What will you do for light? All kinds of options these days. Well, you always have candles, and you always have, maybe you might want to have a hurricane or an oil lamp, kerosene lamp. Those are helpful, but you need to realize they are dangerous in that you have a live flame. So if you have animals that might knock it over or children that might knock something like that over, you might want to come up with a little bit safer option. Definitely flashlights. This is the kind of flashlight that you squeeze it to make it work. So you don't need to recharge the batteries. You are creating the power by squeezing it with your hand. However, I have one of those that makes a lot of noise and it takes a lot of work to get that to work. So you may want to go to something like this, which is a flashlight, but it has a handle that you can turn. It's a lot easier to turn that handle, and then it folds down. So that's a hand cranked flashlight. Another option are lights that run on batteries. The one on the top here is really neat. This is a solar lamp. I have one of these. On the very top, the round section, there's blacked out. You may have a hard time seeing that, but that's got a solar panel. So this solar lamp can be plugged into the wall to charge it. Even if you have something that's solar powered, you want to have it charged ahead of time because it takes a lot longer for something to be powered up with solar power than it does with electricity. So try to make sure, again, before you lose electricity, or periodically check and make sure your flashlights are working, your batteries are still good, or your solar devices are already charged up. But this will work on solar power as well. In cold weather, identify a place you can stay warm if you lose heat, or in hot weather, identify a place you can get cool. Many times when there is an issue in an area, you will hear people announce on the radio or on the television, but definitely on the radio if you can't get the television, they will announce that maybe a nearby nursing home may be open to other people, or maybe a fire station or a Red Cross location. They will let you know where to go so that you can stay warm. Or sometimes in the summer times, especially senior citizens, sometimes really have an issue with heat, and certain people with certain health conditions, they can't be too hot for too long. So again, go to a place you can get cool, somewhere in your home or somewhere else. Now, there are ways to keep cool, but again, I'm going to emphasize more about how to keep warm. All right, so how would you keep warm? Again, if you've got money and you're out of electricity, and you've got money, you can drive to a nearby hotel and you've got money to stay there, that's great. But a lot of us don't have those options. So let's talk about that. Stay warm by stay together in one room. Get everybody in the house into one room, and right away you're sharing your body heat and you're confining the heat to one room. Cover the windows with plastic, blankets, cardboard, anything to keep that wind and that cold from coming into the room. You can also have rugs or blankets on the floor. If you could be in a room that already has a rug, that's great. If you put rugs down or blankets down, make sure that they're anchored so that they don't become a tripping hazard. A real or a makeshift tent. If you have a large area to keep warm, to make it a smaller area to keep warm, if you've got a pop-up tent or any kind of a tent and you put it up in your house, that makes a smaller area to keep warm. Well, maybe you don't have a tent. You could take a table, and again, the table, you can put blankets all around the table, crawl under the table. Again, you're making the area that you're going to have to keep warm smaller so you can retain the heat better. And if all else fails, if you got way too hot or way too cold, you could, for a short period of time, perhaps go out into your car and turn on whatever it is that you need to get you to a good temperature. If you get yourself warm again, and then get one of those space blankets, it will keep you warm, but it won't make you warm if you're already cold. So other ways to stay warm: layer up, clothes. A hat's a real important thing to have because you lose a lot of heat from your head. You may not realize that. I know my husband and I keep the temperature down in our room in the wintertime, and he can handle it a lot cooler than I can. And so sometimes I wear a hat to bed and keeps you warm. Mittens. If you have gloves, they separate your fingers and then they don't stay as warm. If you have mittens, your fingers are together and they stay warm a little bit better. And if you don't have mittens, just put on some socks and that'll keep your hands warm. Drink something warm. Again, if you know you're going to be losing electricity, there's a possibility. I know some people, they right away, they cook up a coffee pot of coffee, or they make some hot water, they make tea, they put it in a thermos, and it's already hot, ready to go. So if they lose electricity, they already have something warm, ready to go. Hand warmers, you can buy those. You can put those with your hands. You can put them in your socks. If you're trying to get in bed, you can put them in your bed to get your bed warm. Those are ways to keep warm. Exercise, get moving around. You wouldn't believe how quickly you can warm up just by getting a little bit of exercise. Get that blood flowing and move around. Blankets are good to have. And of course, cuddling is always nice. Materials, food to have on hand. The suggestion is that you have 1 gallon of water per person per day. But remember, if you've got pets, they need water too. And if you intend to do a lot of cooking, especially with dehydrated food, you've got to add water to something to cook it, and you want to be washing, again, that would be more water than 1 gallon per person per day. I have a big container that had laundry soap in it with one of those spigots that you pour the soap out with. The soap's all gone. There's a little bit of water. There's a little bit of soap left inside. I have filled that with water, and I have it in the bathroom. And if I lose electricity, I just take it out, set it on the counter, and I've got some soapy water all ready to wash my hands. It didn't cost me anything. Someone gave that to me. So again, you can think of ways. There are many ways to be prepared without spending a lot of money. And again, a reminder, don't save water to drink in water bottles, but you can save water for other purposes in a milk container. I'm sorry, and water bottles are fine, but not that you don't want to have it in a milk container. Other things, non-perishable food, things that are easy to prepare. Don't save up on a lot of black-eyed peas if you don't like black-eyed peas. Save food that you know you're going to eat because you like it. And remember, if you don't have electricity, you won't have an electric can opener, so you need to have a manual can opener with you. Get out. Be prepared to exit your house for different reasons. There may be a fire in your house and you need to get out. Or there may be a fire next door or in the area. Maybe there's a brush fire and the emergency personnel realize that that fire is headed toward your house. You need to be able to leave for fire or maybe for emergencies. If there's a train that gets tipped over with a chemical spill, or a truck gets tipped over and there are chemicals being leaked and you need to get out of there, you need to have a plan. First of all, let's talk about if you say you had a fire in your house and you needed to get out. You need to have a plan, but you also need to practice your plan so everyone in your home knows what the plan is and knows where to go and feels comfortable doing it. It's a good idea to practice it. Just like in school, they have fire drills. You could have a fire drill at your house. So you might want to say, let's meet at so-and-so's house. Let's meet at Mrs. McGillicuddy's house 2 doors down. But you need to make sure that Mrs. McGillicuddy is okay with that plan. Or outside the immediate area, like maybe you want to be a little bit further away from your house. So you might want to say, let's meet at the Walmart parking lot or CVS or some store, something like that. Or maybe there's a post office nearby. If you live in an apartment building or a living center, find out their rules and their plans for emergencies. It may be that they've already made a plan for you. It may be, especially at some senior living centers, they already have plans to bring a bus along and bus everyone to where they need to go. They will help you get to where you need to go. They may have a plan in place. It may be that if you live in an apartment building, that your landlord has a generator. And he will, if you ask him, he'll say, if we ever don't have electricity, come down to the meeting room and we will have a generator running and we'll have heat in that area and we'll make sure you have running water just in that area. So again, find out the plan for where you live. You can't take everything with you. If you could take everything you wanted with you, this is what your backpack would look like, but we can't do that. So let's take a look about what you can take with you. First of all, where are you going to put whatever you plan on taking with you? Have a plan of and know where it is. Maybe a hook on the wall, maybe stuff in your closet. And if you know that there's something going on, you may need to leave at a moment's notice, you might want to put it right by the front door, ready to go. Materials and supplies. Cell phones. It's kind of hard to get along without a cell phone anymore. Cell phones for calls, for emergency information. Many times emergency information is posted if you go online. It's a nice thing to have. Maybe you want to use it as a reading source, access to social media, maybe play some games, but realize if you can't repower your phone, you don't want to use up your energy playing games and then not be able to make phone calls like you need to. So you need to kind of plan on how much you can use your phone. Now, in your local area, it may be very difficult to call someone because everyone's calling at the same time and it kind of ties up the lines. But many times, if you send someone a text message, that message will get through a lot easier than a telephone call. So remember that text messages can get through better than a phone call. Conserve your phone battery. Don't waste it watching a lot of movies and not be able to do emergency phone calls. And have an extra phone charger. Now, I'm not saying you should buy this particular brand, but I happen to have this charger. I have this. And on the front, this is a solar panel. Now, I can plug this into the wall to charge it. There's one line that goes to the wall. Then there are 2 places where I can plug in to recharge my phone or to recharge a tablet. And on the very back, I can push a button and there's actually a flashlight located on the back side of it. This particular model I really like, but there's all kinds of power banks out there. It's a good idea. Again, if you know you might lose electricity, make sure that power bank is charged up. I had someone recently say, oh, I went to use my flashlight and the batteries didn't work. So you might want to tell yourself maybe the first of every month, check your devices and make sure the batteries still work, make sure the batteries are still good. If things need to be charged, make sure they're recharged so that you're ready for an emergency. Battery pack, we talked about that, especially if you have a power chair. Flashlights, the LED, the light emitting diode lights are the best because they last the longest. The same goes for light bulbs. You want to have extra batteries for your phone. If you have hearing aids, make sure you have extra batteries. Anything you use that uses batteries. Know what size each item takes. Some of my things I've actually written with a piece of tape. This flashlight takes 4 D cell batteries, so I don't even have to open it to find out. Or maybe make a list of the items you have and the kind of batteries that they need. Medications, this is really important to take medication with you. It's a great idea to have 3 months worth of medications on hand at all times. If you set up a mail order of your meds, many times they'll give you 90 days worth, which is 3 months. Or make sure that they are delivered to you automatically. Because if you're out of medication for a few days and then you keep getting a few days behind, you will never have that 3 months worth of medication with you. Ask your pharmacy to print out 2 copies of medication, one for you and one to give to emergency personnel if they need it. And every time your doctor changes your medication, ask them to print it out again. Portable items of larger medical equipment like oxygen. It's a good idea to have a first aid kit, just maybe something really small, a few Band-Aids, maybe some alcohol wipes, something like that. Toiletries, travel sized, because that way you can take a lot of things. Instead of having a big backpack with a huge thing of toothpaste, just have a little thing of toothpaste, maybe. Backup glasses. I've got an extra pair of glasses here so that, but if I can't see, I'm in big trouble. So if I have to go somewhere, I try to bring some extra glasses with me. It's a good idea to have cash. Now, I know some people that they're a lot better off financially. They have a lot of money set aside. You may not be able to do that, but if you can just put away a couple dollars every week or so to have some extra cash with you, the reason is if you go to a store, you may not be able to buy anything because your credit card won't work. The ATMs may not work because they rely on electricity. Your credit cards may not work because of electricity. So it's a good idea to have cash. Change of clothes, again, depends on the weather. If it's really thundering and lightning outside, or if there's a lot of rain or a lot of snow, you might want to take an umbrella. Or if it's really cold outside, maybe have an extra change of socks. You definitely want to have a hat, have mittens or gloves, have boots. If you know that you'll be walking through some rough territory, maybe there was an earthquake somewhere and there's broken glass, it's a good idea to have some nice sturdy shoes. All kinds of paperwork. If you have to leave your house in a hurry because of flooding or because of a fire, you may not be able to go back to your house. Or if there's a tornado coming through, it may be when you come back to your house, there might not be a lot left. So you want to make sure you have your records with you. Many times after an emergency event, you can't get help unless you can prove this is where I lived. So you want to have your Medicare or other insurance cards, birth certificates, driver's license, power of attorney and a will, marriage and adoption certificates, proof of address, show that that's where you live. Maybe you would have a couple bills that have your name on that address to show that you live there. Immunization records, a record of all the shots that you've had, information about ATM cards, whatever you might need. And down here, you'll see that I've got kind of a folder that you can put things in. And this is a plastic folder, so hopefully it would protect your papers from getting wet. And also down here, let me see, you might put everything on a thumb drive to save the information on that. That's also helpful to make sure you've got copies of things. Or take a picture, and I have Gmail. I could email that to myself, and it would be online where I could pull that up if I needed to. Just think through those things, what you need to have. Contact information, emergency contacts. I have to admit, I don't know my daughter's phone numbers. I just pull up the name and I hit send and it goes. But what if I drop my phone and it broke and my phone doesn't work anymore? I worked on it a few times. I gotta admit, I started a 3x5 card and I wrote everybody's numbers down and I don't know where the card is. So after I'm done with this presentation, I need to redo that card and have it maybe in a few places, maybe in the glove box of my car and maybe in my checkbook or something. So I've got my emergency contacts written out. So if I don't have my phone for some reason, I can still call the people I need to. Now it says one not local. The reason is if you all live in the same area and everyone's calling everyone else, you might not be able to get through. But if you've got Aunt Agatha who lives in Des Moines, Iowa, and you all agree if we have an emergency, we're going to call Aunt Agatha, and Agatha can say, oh yes, I heard from her mother, I heard from her sister, they're doing okay, they're at such and such a local shelter, whatever. She can kind of keep track of information for everyone. If you call out of the area, you're more likely to get through. Have your doctor's names, any kind of specialist you see, have their names, have their contact information, the pharmacy you use, NICEAG, we talked about that, and a vet for your pets. Plan your support system. Who can help you? Maybe you need help exiting your house. If you're stuck at home, you can't leave your house, who can maybe get the groceries for you? Who can check on you? And I know Jeff, someone that worked with at Flick named Jeff, he said it might be a good idea for someone to check on you, maybe have an agreement that you check on each other, like maybe once a week or once a month, even when there isn't an emergency, just to see how someone's doing. And it might be that you can be the support person for someone else. Maybe someone needs to help you with something, but you can also be helpful for someone else. Other considerations, if someone is deaf or hard of hearing, make sure that you have access to warnings, that your phone will vibrate, whatever it needs to. Mobility issues. Plan for necessary assistance to get to a shelter and know how to recharge your electric wheelchair, that type of thing. And if someone is going to take you, if emergency personnel are going to take you to a safety shelter, you might want to let them know, I have a special need. I'm on oxygen and I need to be able to plug in my oxygen machine, or I have an electric wheelchair and I need to be able to recharge that. And in really dire circumstances, they may have to give you a regular wheelchair, but let them know what your needs are so they can take care of them as much as possible. Non-English speaking persons, form connections with your community and your cultural groups. Stay informed during emergencies. If possible, you can put a translator app on your phone. Another thing, if you work in Ithaca, but your children go to school in, say, Newfield, you might not be able to get to your children. So maybe have someone who is local that you trust sign out a release form telling the school, if there's an emergency and I cannot pick up my children, so-and-so has my permission to take my children from school and take them to their home. You need to think about those things. People with special dietary needs, if you maybe can't have gluten or can't have dairy, you might want to pack away a few things in your backpack when you go somewhere to make sure that you have food that you can eat. People without vehicles, without transportation, have a transportation plan that someone can pick you up or know where you'd be able to catch a bus with someone. People with visual challenges. These are so specific to the person, so unique. All I can say is plan for what kind of assistance you would need. Plan with someone and let them know what kind of help that you would need. People with speech challenges. Or maybe normally you're fine talking until you get excited, get nervous, and then you have to getting the words out. That happens to a lot of us when we get nervous. And so what you want to do is make sure you have an assistive communication device with you. If you have one, have a paper and pen with you so you can communicate back and forth and share information. After any emergency, it's all over, you got through it. Look at your supplies and your preparation. Think about, oh, I'm so glad I had this worked great for me. And then say, yeah, but this thing over here, that didn't work so well. I bought this thing I thought would work great and it didn't. But assess your needs. Talk with other people. What worked for them? What didn't work for them? Something that I've learned to do is if I want to fill up buckets of water really quickly, I used to put the bucket in the bathtub and then fill it up and then pull it back out. Now what I do is I just stick the bucket in front of the sink and I get one of those pool noodles. I jam the one end on the end of the faucet and the other end I put in the bucket and I can fill a bucket really quickly with a pool noodle and I don't even have to move the bucket very far. So that's something that I've learned, something I just share with you. Talk with other people about their experiences, learn from them, and share what you've learned or share what works for you so you can help each other. And based on your inventory, what did you eat? Did you eat up all your crackers? Did you eat up all your peanut butter? Whatever you learned, and say, okay, I'm going to restock this because this worked great. This piece of equipment didn't work. From now on, maybe you want to buy something different. Maybe you tried using candles and you realize, oh, well, every time the dog ran by, the kids ran by, it blew up the candle. So that didn't work for me. Now I want to get a battery in it. Whatever you need to do, restock or change your supplies to be ready for the next emergency. Winter storms. That happens in New York a lot. Stay inside and off the roads. Stay dry. If they say stay home, stay home. Now, I've lived in New York almost my whole life, and I know how to drive in snow. But many times you're on the road with people who don't know how to drive, and they can get you into an accident. So if at all possible, if you can stay home in bad weather, just stay home and stay safe. Dress in layers, because as you run around, as you're maybe out there, maybe you're shoveling, you get hot, you might get sweaty, and if you get sweaty, that sweat can make you cold layers. So you want to dress in layers. So if you start getting too warm, you can take the layers off or put more layers on if you need to. bring their pets into a warm place. Be aware of your pets. You may have an outdoor pet, but in really, really cold weather, they need to be brought inside. We've got a couple of outdoor cats, and we don't bring them in the house, but we have a way that we know when it's really bad weather, they have a way that they can crawl into our basement. And we know that they won't be 80-degree weather down there, but it'll be warm enough and they'll be comfortable enough that they'll be safe. So monitor the local news. They may tell you, be prepared to leave your home. Do not use the oven to heat the house. So many times after a situation where people don't have electricity, the firemen will come on and say, oh, we had another fire in the home because they were using the oven to heat the house. Make sure that your smoke detectors, make sure that your carbon monoxide detectors work. If you have some kind of a heater to use in the house, make sure it's the kind that's safe to use in the house. There is a type of heater called a buddy heater. They've gotten pretty sophisticated where they have a built-in carbon monoxide monitor right there on the equipment. And if it starts to get too high, it shuts itself off. If it gets tipped over, it shuts itself off. If you have to use something like a kerosene heater or something, make sure you've got the windows open a little bit. Make sure that you are able to get fresh air. And again, you need to think of those things ahead of time. Do one thing. Some people just feel so overwhelmed, like, I don't even know how to start to get ready for an emergency. This website is called Do One Thing. It's a 12-month program that helps you prepare yourself, your family, and your community for emergencies or disaster. Every month, they emphasize one thing that you can do. Maybe 1 month, they'll talk about making sure you have enough water. And if you want to know the whole thing, you can go to this website. You can print out all 12 months and have it already and start checking off things. Do one thing. Don't feel overwhelmed right now. You might feel like, oh, wow, there's so many things that I need to do. Well, there are buckets of food that they say can last 25 years without refrigeration. If you don't open them up, they're good for 25 years, but they might cost $200, $300, $400. You don't have to spend that kind of money. Do one thing at a time. Every time you go to the grocery store, maybe buy just one extra can of green beans or one extra can of whatever you like to eat. Maybe pineapple, maybe fruit cocktail, maybe Spam, maybe tuna fish, something, maybe peanut butter. Just maybe buy one extra thing. And think about that. If every week you bought just one extra food item, you start putting that away. How long would it take before you build up a little thing in your pantry? You say, hey, if I have an emergency and I have to stay at home, I've got some food here that I can eat now because I've been saving it. I've been doing one thing every month or every time I go shopping. You might want to check your batteries and see if your flashlights are working. Maybe you have flashlights, but when's the last time you checked them to see if the batteries are working? Again, all kinds of things, but this Do One Thing is a great resource. We have more resources that are on the same webpage that this webinar was posted. So if you go to that page, go back to that page, there are all kinds of documents and web links that you can hook up with, and you can find out more ways to be prepared. So here's some apps that you can use. There's a thing called AccuWeather. I have the Weather Channel on my phone. I can check the weather where I am, and I can check the weather where my daughter is just by putting in an address. Rain Aware is another one. 211. In the Tompkins-Cortland area, there is a number you can dial that's 211. It's not 911, it's 211. And they promise that 65 days a year, 24/7, you can get information. Now, I wouldn't want to wait until there is an actual emergency happening because, again, all kinds of people might be trying to call that number. So if there's information you need to know, you could maybe ask, if there was a problem in my area, what would the closest rescue shelter be? And sometimes that changes over time because they don't list all of the rescue shelters, because if northern Ithaca is having a problem, then southern Ithaca shelters would have to be open. So again, you can maybe call and ask information. They also say you can get help by text message. You can get help by email. But again, a lot of these assistance from 211 would be maybe when there isn't an emergency. You want to do that ahead of time. There's some more resources that we have. And again, we'll post some of these online so you can look at them. These are some of the source materials we used. If someone was moderating this, presentation, some things to discuss if you have a group of people together is during the recent COVID-19 stay-at-home order, what was your experience? How did it go for you? In what ways were you well prepared? In what ways were you not well prepared? And how might you prepare differently now? Is there something your local community did that helped you? You said, "Oh wow, this became available to me, and I really liked it." I know that when COVID-19 first hit the Ithaca area, a lot of people didn't have masks, and there were people that stepped up and said, "Hey, I can make some masks at my home," and then a whole army of people got together and made masks for people. So that's how the community helped people in Ithaca area. What other ways maybe did people in your area help you? Is there something you would like your local community to do to support you better if something similar happens again? Is there anything you would like Finger Lakes Independent Center to know about your experience, good or bad, about being prepared? So all these things to think about. I want to mention one more thing. Going back to the medications, is one reason why you want to have your medications printed out is because, again, when you get upset, you might not remember things. And I've talked to people that have run emergency shelters and say, people come in and say, "I don't know what I take. I take a blue pill in the morning and I take a pink one at lunch, and I think I take 3 white ones at night," but they don't know what they're taking. They don't know the name of it. They don't know the amount that they're taking or how often, and they can't give you the medication you need if they don't have that printed out. So that's something that's really helpful. Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this presentation on emergency readiness. Again, if you want some help making emergency plans, you can contact the FLIC staff at 607-272-2433. And we trust that this presentation will help you be ready for the next emergency, whatever it is. Good luck.